Picture a land whose military stretches from the razor-thin ridges of the Himalayas to the deep waters of the Indian Ocean. Jets roar off carriers, tanks roll across deserts and mountains, and beneath the waves lurk submarines armed with nuclear missiles. That land is India. In 2025, its armed forces are not just strong, they're among the very top on Earth. So how insanely powerful is India's military today? Let's find out. India currently ranks 4th out of 145 countries in the 2025 Global Firepower Index, posting a power index score of 0.1184. This top-tier ranking already signals something important. India is no longer simply a regional heavyweight. It stands in the league of global military powers. But what does this ranking reflect? Not just raw manpower, but also the balance across land, air, sea, and strategic nuclear forces. That diversity gives India strategic flexibility. In my view, this is a turning point. India isn't just defending its borders, it's projecting itself as a force with global relevance. Then there's the budget angle. While precise numbers vary, India's defense budget has been climbing strongly. It shows intent and resources behind the ambition. On land, India fields one of the world's largest all-volunteer armies, with active troop numbers in the ballpark of approximately 1.4 million. Supplemented by sizable reserves and paramilitary forces, the ground component is massive. The armor and firepower reflect that scale, roughly 4,000 to 4,700 tanks, including upgraded T-72s, T-90 Bhishma models, and indigenous Arjun tanks, plus more than 4,000 artillery pieces, rocket launchers, and mechanized vehicles. These systems aren't just for show. In terrain as varied as desert plains, jungle, and high altitude, India is structurally prepared. The Army's modernization programs, for example, future soldier systems, upgraded artillery, new armored regiments, indicate that India is moving beyond legacy Soviet-era gear toward next-gen capabilities. In my opinion, this shift from quantity toward quality is where the real move happens. Sheer numbers matter, but how you use them counts even more. When you consider that India must secure vast borders with the likes of China and Pakistan, and simultaneously deploy forces overseas or to the seas, the army's scale and structure begin to look like a serious strategic asset, not just a deterrent. Take a step back and the air domain comes into focus. The Indian Air Force, IAF, is estimated at roughly approximately 2,200 aircraft strong, placing it among the top 4 global air forces in terms of broad strength and capability. Among its assets, multi-role fighters like the French-made Rafale, Russian-made Su-30 MKYs, indigenous fighters such as the HAL Tejas, transport aircraft including the C-17 Globemaster III, and increasingly unmanned aerial vehicles for surveillance and strike. Beyond hardware, the IAF is upgrading radar networks, electronic warfare systems, and domestic production lines. This air domain gives India multiple strategic advantages: rapid response, reach beyond immediate borders, mobility across mountain, desert, and maritime zones. In my view, the most interesting element is the push toward domestic production. If India can reduce dependence on foreign platforms and build more limited series jets and UAVs at home, its air power ceiling could increase dramatically. The maritime dimension is often underrated in land-centric narratives, yet here, the Indian Navy is quietly building serious power. It currently operates 2 aircraft carriers, INS Vikramaditya, INS Vikrant, around a dozen destroyers, a similar number of frigates, about 18 corvettes, and a 16 submarine fleet, which includes both conventional and nuclear-powered vessels. Crucially, India is aiming for a fleet of roughly 175 vessels by 2035. That ambition underscores a shift toward true blue water capability, not just defending India's littoral zone, but projecting power across regions, securing sea lanes, and guarding the second strike component of its nuclear deterrent. What this means: in the Indian Ocean, a critical highway of global trade and energy supplies, India is positioning itself as a dominant maritime player. In my opinion, this naval growth will become a key element of India's strategic identity in the coming decades, especially given China's naval expansion. Now for the stealth element: nuclear and strategic forces. India is a recognized nuclear weapons state and has developed what is commonly described as a nuclear triad. land-based ballistic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and air-launched cruise missiles. Although exact warhead counts are not officially released, estimates place India's arsenal in the ballpark of 170 to 180 warheads. Budget spending on nuclear forces is also notable. For example, in 2024, India is estimated to have spent roughly $2.6 billion on maintaining its nuclear forces. India's declared policy emphasizes no first use, meaning in principle it will not be the first to employ nuclear weapons but retains credible retaliatory capability. This strategic posture grants India stability in deterrence terms and shapes how regional adversaries view escalation. In my view, this nuclear leg gives India strategic depth. Conventional forces are crucial, but it is the nuclear dimension that often tilts calculation. Thus, India has moved from a purely regional contender to a global actor with credible strategic weight. One of the most fascinating parts of India's military story is the rise of its domestic defense industrial base. Under programs like Make in India, the country is shifting from importer to designer manufacturer. For example, the HAL Tejas light combat aircraft, the Arjun main battle tank, missile systems such as the Agni V, Pralay, and Nirbhai. Recent Defense Ministry data highlight that for fiscal year 2025 to 26, around 75% of the modernization budget, some 111,544 crore rupees, is earmarked for procurement from domestic industries. This shift has ripple effects: supply chain independence, domestic employment, potential defense exports, and the ability to customize systems for local terrain and mission sets. In my opinion, if India successfully scales up this industrial base, the next decade could see it leapfrog many current assumptions about military export states and strategic suppliers. Moreover, defense manufacturing targets are ambitious, aiming to increase defense exports significantly and reduce import dependency. That transition is not easy, but it's underway. No military is flawless, and India's forces face a number of real challenges. First, the weight of manpower and legacy systems. The 2025 to 26 defense budget of about 6.81 trillion rupees, approximately $78.7 billion, is indeed a record. But a large slice goes to salaries, pensions, and maintenance, leaving less for capital procurement. Secondly, procurement and modernization are often slower than desired, in part due to bureaucratic and logistical hurdles. Thirdly, India covers extremely varied terrain from high-altitude mountains and glaciers to deserts and long maritime coastlines, which creates unique logistical burdens not faced by every army. Finally, while indigenous production is rising, many systems still rely on imports, and defense export volumes remain modest relative to peers. In my view, acknowledging these challenges does not diminish India's power. Rather, it gives a more realistic picture of what power means and what is required to sustain it. India is strong, but strength must be maintained, modernized, and adapted. So, what's next? The trajectory suggests India is not just consolidating, but accelerating. The next decade is likely to see increased automation and networked battlefield systems, broader adoption of artificial intelligence, deepening cyber and space capabilities, new missile technologies including hypersonics, and a naval fleet that truly rivals any in India's maritime neighborhood. Defense spending projections suggest that from 2025 to 2029, India may spend around $415.9 billion, inclusive of pensions, on defense. Internationally, India is taking on more global roles: multilateral exercises, partnerships, defense exports, and strategic outreach. Regionally, its ability to operate in the Indian Ocean, across South Asia, and link with Indo-Pacific frameworks is growing. In my opinion, if current trends, indigenization, modernization, global outreach continue, India is on track to become one of the world's few truly global military powers. Not tomorrow, but certainly within this decade. From the peaks of Ladakh to the depths of the Indian Ocean, India's forces aren't waiting for conflicts. They're preparing for the full spectrum of possibilities. The sheer scale of manpower, the modernization of air and naval power, the strategic nuclear shield, and the emergence of a domestic defense industrial complex all combine into one message: India's military is formidable, evolving, and increasingly global in scope. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world's fourth strongest military, hit subscribe and stay tuned for more high-quality breakdowns of the world's most powerful armed forces. Thanks for watching.